I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, here we are once again, West Point, Mississippi. Turkey season, youth season has started here in Mississippi. They're hunting in Florida.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on. This is a very exciting time of the year. You're beginning to see. I see these little white blooms everywhere. Dudley, what are those?
it depends. There's a lot of white blooms.
Little bit.
You got spring beauties on the ground, but yeah, you're seeing a lot of that Callery, aka Bradford pear.
Yep.
And I urge everybody to learn the difference between that and the plums and wild crab apples and things.
I'm seeing some Chickasaw plums blooming, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mexican plum, Chickasaw, all of them.
Yeah. Not seeing much of Toxie. Have you been out listening yet, Toxie?
Once. To dead silence, too. Nothing yet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get our guest introduced here. We've got, this guy is the most interesting man. He is absolutely fascinating. There's so many different things we can talk about, but we've got Mr. Mark Prudhomme. He's from South Carolina. He tells us he loves hunting anything to do with wild turkeys and old double barrel shotguns. So that kind of tees him up for where we'll go today.
Fit right in.
Yeah. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on here.
You know, you've graced our halls from time to time. I kind of sat down with you and you told a dog story one time. I didn't realize that you were the complicated, complex person that you are.
Well, he was just telling us, wait a minute, he was just telling us how simple he is. What you just said before we started, you like turkey hunting and double barrel shotguns. And that's kind of it, is what he said, Bobby.
But when you boil it down, this guy is the world owl hooting champion. He's the world trumpet call champion.
He's the world champion at making those two, so that kind of helps him a little in the contest.
He runs the Grand National contest up there. He is, when it comes to turkey calls, is there one you can't run?
Well, probably so. But the thing is I like all of them. I like calling with all of them. Just recently, in the last few years, I kind of migrated toward the trumpet, and that's pretty much all I hunt with, that and a tube call. But over the years competing and everything else, I've used just about every kind of call there is. In fact, in the Champion of Champions, we had to run 5 different calls to do 5 different turkey sounds. So I had to kind of do the best I could at each one of those. So
well, how'd you do in that contest?
I won it 5 times.
No big deal. It's kind of like the way us ADHD people are. We find something that we're interested in, and then we just completely tear it apart and obsess over it until we get as much out of that experience as we can. And then maybe you start getting a little bored with it, and you move on to another thing that you want to try to master. And based on what I've read and seen from you, you kind of take it to the next level. I mean, the trumpet thing, you found out about it and you were interested in it, and it's, you're now probably one of the best, if not the best, at using a trumpet.
Well, he's the best in the world.
Yeah.
He won the world.
And then I've seen you've also won duck calling stuff as well. I mean, so you were a true multi-instrumentalist of the turkey hunting world.
That all kind of came about maybe a little by accident, but I started duck calling, duck hunting first, of course, and when I was a kid, squirrel hunting, duck hunting, and then migrated towards turkeys later. But we didn't have any turkeys is the reason why. But once I started turkey calling, and I'll just kind of tell you the background of how I got started. I'm real competitive. So I used to race motocross, and while I was hunting, if I wasn't hunting, I was racing. So that's kind of what I used to do. And always been real competitive, so I like to compete in things. And when I kind of started getting broke up and realized I need to get off the bikes, then I decided that I was going to get into competition calling. And then I realized real quick, the first contest I went to was the World Friction and South Carolina State Championship, and I got beat up pretty bad. So I didn't like that, but I knew I wasn't ready. So I decided I was going to go home and practice. It took me about 2 years before I'd come back. And I came back and didn't win, but I did okay. So I realized I was kind of on the right track and ended up finally winning the South Carolina State. So that kind of progressed. And then I went to the World and ended up, doing pretty well the first couple of times I went to the World. Won the Grand American and then started, competing more in the Grand Nationals. And I got so nervous at the Grand Nationals that I couldn't hardly function when I was on stage. So I decided that the way that I'd get better at, not being so nervous was to just get up there more. So I entered all the other contests. I entered the gobbling and the owl hooting. Well, I started winning the owl hooting. So I kind of got into the owl hooting, and then finally I won the gobbling, and I decided, that I was going to just kind of do a little bit of all of it. And then the NRA contest came about years ago where you had to call 7 different species. You had to call elk, deer, duck, goose, turkey, predator, and owl. I think it was 7. So anyway, I couldn't practice all of it at one time. So I'd pick 1 week and I would just work on one thing for 1 week. I did it year round, and then I'd move to the next thing and I'd work on that. Of course, turkey and owl, I didn't have to work quite as hard because I'd been doing that, but ended up winning that one time and then won the team with John Paul Moody, and was pretty fortunate to win that. But that's kind of how it all started. And then I decided I was going to compete in South Carolina State Duck. I won the South Carolina State Duck calling contest, which then I went to the Blue in the World Duck calling contest, and then won the South Carolina State Goose calling contest. And, it just kind of rolled from there. It just kind of happened. I didn't plan it all out, but that's just kind of how it ended up.
What do you do when you're not calling? Have you got a normal job?
Actually, I'm a wildlife manager. I've been, for the last 42 years, I've been a wildlife manager. So I ended up working after school. I was in high school all through college, and then went full time, and then managed a plantation for many years. And I just, that got transferred over to the state. So then I moved on to a different one. So I'm managing another plantation now.
Oh, that sounds
mostly waterfowl, but deer and turkey too.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. That gives you a chance to use those old double barrels too, I would imagine.
Exactly.
So I'm telling you, Dudley, he's the most interesting man we've never talked to, and we're fixing to learn a little bit more about him. Mark, what I'd like to do right now is we have a thing called Rapid Fire, and we get to learn a little bit more about you through some questions Dudley asked. Toxie, now Rapid Fire is brought to you by our friends at Nutrient Ag Solutions.
They are our friends.
And what great guys.
They are.
If you've got any questions about food
Great
plots,
company for the farm community, but for wildlife managers too, just like yourself.
Learning about chemicals, fertilizers,
gosh, they're so,
inputs.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the best at what they do.
They really are.
Okay. All right, Mark, hang on. Dudley's fixing to come right at you with some questions.
Yeah, Mark. So I don't know how familiar you are with this, but we usually ask our guests about 10 or 12 questions in rapid fire mode just to get to know them better. So are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, first question. What is your next favorite item in a low country boil besides the shrimp?
Sausage.
The sausage. All right. Not in relation to call making. Name your favorite tree species.
I guess dogwood.
There you go. Do you wear a turkey vest or something besides a vest?
I wear a turkey vest.
All right. Do you call to them on the roost or wait?
I call to them on the roost.
Among the more common turkey styles, which one do you use the least? Pot, box, mouth yelper, tube, or trumpet?
Hot.
You are hunting your place with a buddy and two come in. Do you more often than not save one for another day, or do you go for a double?
Save one.
Favorite time of the spring to be outside? Early, mid-spring, or late spring?
Early.
Would you rather be duck hunting from a boat in the winter or fishing from the boat all summer?
Duck hunting in the winter.
Name a favorite state to visit in the spring besides your home state.
Georgia.
Have you swapped to TSS or do you still use the copper-plated sixes?
Well, that's complicated. I switched to TSS, but in the old guns, I can't shoot it, so I shoot lead in those.
There you go. Okay, hunt scenario. He's hung up at 55 yards and there's a chance he'll see you move. Are you going to pull out the trusty trumpet or do you try to use another call?
I'm going to stick with the trumpet unless I decide to hit him hard with that tube call. Maybe gobble at him or something like that.
There you go. I like it. Well, that's it. Good job.
Yeah, those good questions.
Very good.
So, learning that you're the world gobbling champion, are there scenarios where you find yourself when you can pull out that gobble and you can make you can call him in?
You know, I do. But it's kind of a last resort. I don't gobble at them. And, you know, I'm hunting private land. So, you know, most of the time I know it's safe. I wouldn't gobble on public land or places I, you know, don't know who's hunting around me. But I do gobble to them if I have to. And I always describe it like this. You know, a lot of people use a gobbler decoy, which, you know, whether it's a strutter or a jake, whatever. So when you do that, you're giving them a visual of there's another gobbler. So all I'm doing is giving him the audio version. You know, it's thick where I hunt. He may not be able to see a decoy anyway. So gobbling at him is really not a lot different than showing him a male decoy in my book. But sometimes it gets them fired up. Sometimes it doesn't do anything. I don't think I've ever run one off gobbling, but I do. I remember Chris Parrish and I were filming for Night and Hail show back a few years ago, and we worked a turkey, and he and I were tag teaming, and we worked him together and couldn't do anything with him. He just stood out there and gobbled and gobbled and gobbled. He wouldn't really leave and he wouldn't come. And I took my diaphragm and just started gobbling, and he gobbled back. And I gobbled again, and he was closer. And he finally came in, and it was more of a kind of a challenge territorial type deal where he didn't like that, and he came right in. So, you know, it can work. I'm not saying it works all the time, but that's definitely not the first thing I do, but I have.
So, yeah, we've asked that question to quite a few very good hunters, and everybody was pretty consistent with exactly what you said. In fact, I think they've all said in the description, kind of a last resort, even though they use it something different. It's almost identical to what you just described, too. Mm-hmm. Only thing I would say, a little caveat, is that really late, like some of the seasons have been pushed back, they're really a lot more, some of them are a lot more interested in getting back together than breeding a hen. And in those cases, sometimes it might really work. You know, when a hen
absolutely
call, wouldn't
yeah.
it? But wow. That's late.
Do you ever do it?
Yes, but it's last resort.
Yeah. What do you gobble
just
with?
One of those shaker tubes.
Yeah.
I had a lot of, what was it called? The Red Wolf was kind of the originator of that stuff. It was pretty good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I can't do it with a mouth call. I've tried. Neil's pretty good at it. But it's one of those things you got to decide you want to get good at it. It's not easy.
Yeah. So, Mark, why don't we start with you being the world champion owl hooter? Can you give us some tips and tricks and techniques to learn to blow an owl call? And first, I'd like to ask you. I mean, growing up, everybody used their natural voice, and then somewhere along the way, that changed to these wooden owl calls. What happened? How did that get?
They're not all wooden, Bobby. Some are made out of electrical tape, even.
Is
Would you believe
it?
Inside joke.
Yeah, some of them look like 2 trips to the hardware store.
They do.
Toxic.
The best ones do.
So, back in the day, everything was natural voice, and I kind of came in at that transition. When guys like Tucker Crisp and Doug Benefield, those guys were just really, really good at natural voice, and Benefield beat me natural voice a few times, early on, and then the Palmers came in, and it started kind of transitioning more towards calls. And now there may be 1 or 2 guys at the Grand Nationals that natural voice hoot, but it's really hard to compete with a good owl hooter. And it's kind of like running a duck call. Once you learn it and get your air right, it's a hard call to beat. It just does so many different things. And so, yeah, I would definitely use a call. In the morning, it's not that important to make a turkey gobble, but I've always felt like when I go in the woods, I want to sound exactly like whatever I'm after or whatever I'm trying to mimic.
Ditto.
And it's just a thing that I do. I just want to be as real. I want to fit in. I don't want to stand out, and I don't want anything out there. Plus, here's one thing that I've learned over the years is if I hoot and a turkey doesn't gobble, doesn't mean there's not one there. So I'll maybe hit it again and get a little bit more fired up, maybe a little louder. I'll run a little short thing because I want to be able to hear him gobble. I don't want to be calling while he's gobbling. But also, if he doesn't gobble, what I want to do at that point is I'm talking to the owls. So I want to get those owls fired up. So you got owls 300 yards on either side of you answering you back and forth. They're doing the work for you at that point. They're hooting. You can cover a lot more ground. All you got to do is sit back and listen. So that's kind of what I do, is just try to get them fired up. And of course, if that doesn't work, I'll probably switch to a crow call or something like that.
Well, that makes sense with the, trying to be as realistic as possible, especially our friends that hunt a lot of public. You may not want to give yourself away, that a hunter's there. But if you can sound almost just like an owl and fool the hunters, then you can get away with it. So, yeah.
I'm a big proponent of always using on the roost is on the roost, whatever it takes maybe to locate one. But I'm a big proponent of never yipping at them or cutting at them first. I always try crow, owl, whatever. Some people use hawk calls, paleta woodpeckers, whatever it is. Because I always say, you're up in the day and you yip at one or cut, the meter's ticking. And you might not have a spot picked out. You might have someone else with you. It's like a Keystone Cops. Because that time of day, they might be on you quick, So it's a lot more of a – if he gobbles on his own, or if you make him gobble with the crow caller, I'd much prefer that.
Right. And it seems kind of simple to think about this, but like you said, if you yelp and one doesn't gobble, you may move on 300 yards away and the turkeys show up.
So Mr. Mark, I want to learn about this owl hooter with electrical tape on it. What's that about?
You sure Bobby, you sure are nosy. It's in my truck right now.
The thing is, everybody kind of, when everybody started using hooters, the Palmers had their hooter. It was a wooden hooter. And a lot of guys started making calls themselves. And no matter how you look at it, the old Nightingale Reed hooter is the basis for all of them. Harold and David got it right to start with. So what I always did, being with Nightingale for all those years, is I would take a Nightingale hooter, take the guts out of it, and then, configure it. So what I wanted to do is try to give it tone. So I created a chamber, and then I used more soft parts so I wasn't hearing that reed rattle in there. So you're trying to take all that away, because in competition, you got to hide any unnatural noise and that kind of thing. So, we used to wrap them with electrical tape, and sometimes the more tape you put on there, the better they would sound, and sometimes it wouldn't. So it made it a little harder to keep them clean. You got to unwrap them and all that kind of stuff. But really, those hooters were at one time, they were pretty hard to beat. Now, I know there was a guy named Don Lauderdale down in Alabama, had one of the first ones I remember like that, and Sadler McGraw. And I kind of, we at the same time were running those hooters, and then it kind of caught on, and then everybody started building them. But and then James Harrison came in, and James started, making the wooden hooters and that kind of stuff. Again, more along the lines of the Palmers. And then James is kind of at the top right now. His hooters are pretty awesome.
He talked about his calls especially, but he's been involved in contests. So what people can understand is it's so different than hunting. And I'm not that hunting in the ultimate test, but you're trying to win a contest. You might be 3 or 5 feet from a judge. So the slightest like reed rattle or air getting around it's unnatural at all, especially on turkey calls too, but on this owl hooter. So like you said, he's built stuff to win that, so that you don't have any imperfections of like 3 to 5 feet from someone in a dead quiet room. That's a whole different level of, skill to build one like that.
Sure.
Then, at 200 yards, it's, with the judge of turkey hunting, sure. But, if you can fool a judge at 5 feet, you can sure fool a turkey big time.
Sure. And a lot of people hear those hooters and they say, well, it's not very loud. But, I was fortunate enough years ago when I was really serious with my owl calling. I went to a raptor center. A guy that I knew let me go in there and get in there with the owls. And I did a lot of recording and a lot of different things. And they would put that owl on my arm, and he would hoot right there on my arm. It wasn't that loud. I mean, it didn't, didn't blow your eardrum out or anything. It's just, I think that an owl, an owl's voice carries so far. It's the tone. I mean, you can hear an owl hoot a long way.
You sure can. And plus, I guess they're way up they're up high probably too in a lot of cases.
Sure.
But you can sure hear them a long way.
I think we've got Richie, can you play the sound file? This is Mr. Mark blowing a owl hoot. We may end up naming this one For the Love of Hooters.
You got it, Bobby. Don't even get us started.
Censor that.
Yeah.
All right, Richie, you got a sound.
That is definitely not going to make a cut.
Wow.
Scored a 20 out of 20.
At one time, it sounded like 2 owls.
It did change the tone. What you did, but you said earlier was like, I always like owl hoot. If you don't hear any owl hoot, wait, give it 5 minutes and be patient. But if nothing, then I always have had really good luck sometimes. And Bob Dixon told me it's called laughing, what you did,
Yeah.
And then, if you can, the last resort, scream like you did in there too. But a lot of times, I guess it's just louder and more sudden, but I'll get them to gobble at that laugh when they hadn't the first time I owled. But that was incredible.
And those owls they get fired up.
That'll get them stirred up quicker than anything.
The vocal range on those, that reed can handle, from such low to so high. That's wild.
And are you using your hands to create some kind of different sound there going on, Mr. Mark?
Yeah. And the part where you sounded like 2 owls, I'm changing my hands. I'm playing it like an instrument. So I've got a lot going on with my hands. I'm opening certain fingers, and then I open the bottom of my hand and doing different things to make the sound different. And it just kind of takes a little bit of practice, but it's playing an instrument, so it takes time.
It seems like when you cup that it create the best sound it's almost like it feels like it's creating some back pressure also or
Sure.
something. I don't think it's
Yeah.
more than just muffled. It's something about that. It just changes how good it sounds. But then the key is like you still got to have it open enough to get the sound out there good. So it's not as hard as a lot of other calls, like the trumpet or something. But there is absolutely an art form too. You don't whip on out and blow on it.
So are you taking a big breath of air and really blowing hard in this thing? Or are you just a medium blow, or how would you describe how hard you're blowing?
It depends on which part. On the laughs, I'm blowing harder, but you got to learn to control your air and when to breathe in and get more air. So I'm not doing all that with one breath. So I'll do an 8 note with one breath, and then I'll take a breath, and then there's a way that in between the hoots you can kind of breathe in and breathe out at the same time.
It's incredible. Richie, could we just play the first one more time, please?
Don't play the owl like you did last time. Play him on the call. that couldn't have been a person. He gobbled like 6 times, and you never heard the first one.
Yeah, that's not what you want to do to make one gobble right there.
That was incredible.
I bet you enjoy doing that too. It sounds like that's fun.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely. I love owls. I love hearing them. I like messing with them, and
I walk around 12 months out of the year. I'm obnoxiously at my house watching TV at my desk, and it's just stuck in my head. I love to try to sound like
certainly you go out on your porch a lot at night and do that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love to do that, and
see how many
even barred owl. I mean, great horned owls too. You hear those, and they'll come close to you, and it's a lot of fun fooling with owls.
How about that? Well, that I can certainly believe that he's the world champion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow. Okay, so let's move on just a little bit. Let's talk about the tube call. And I'm told you're one of the best at running a tube call. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's one of those things. In the Champion of Champions, we had to run a tube call. So I got a bunch of tube calls and started running them and trying to figure out which tubes I liked and that kind of thing, and kind of settled on one or two that for me worked best for me. And then I ended up making my own tubes, and then I started making tube calls for the KT team, which is a charity organization that helps kind of disabled hunters get in the woods. So I make a tube for them called the KT team tube call. And so that's what I've been running for the last few years is basically a KT team tube call. And the thing that's different about mine, I guess, is I don't use a lip stop. So most tube calls, when you look in the end of them, you got a little shelf. Your reed goes across, then you got a little shelf where your bottom lip goes, or the bottom part of your lip. So I don't use those. All I do is stretch the latex across, and that's where mine are a little bit different. And it gives you a little bit more freedom. It gives you opportunity to change the angle and to do different things. I can go a little deeper with my lip and it's more versatile for me. Now it's harder to learn to run, but once you learn it, I got Harold Knight switched over. Now Harold's running one like that without a lip stop. So it really is more difficult, but it's more versatile. And so that's what I use.
Guess I'm going to have to get one of those. I had an old Morgan collar of my dad's that, of course, I lost like everything else, but it had that lip stop on it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not the style that I run. And, you know, certainly if you learn, and that helps you to get your lip in the right place, and it helps you to get the latex on, you know, learn how to where it needs to go, that kind of thing.
So we're all familiar with Cuz. So he's a legendary tube caller here locally, and he uses a tube to locate turkeys.
Silicone reeds. They're extinct, except I think he can get them somewhere, and Wilbur made them for him. But it is the most ear-piercing, atmospheric piercing thing I've ever heard. Owl hoots, coyotes, anything. I've literally been at a place in Florida because it's flat, and he's blowing the tube call, and a turkey I can barely hear that someone else is hunting opposite of him is gobbling it. So like in flat country, I'm over a half a mile away, and the guy's over there, and I'm telling you, it's I don't know why, maybe it's his volume of air, but it is so loud. And he does. I mean, that's just like a gunshot or anything else. It will make them gobble a lot of times. The problem is you'll make one gobble, you really don't have any business hunting, you know, when that happens sometimes. He's as good as there is at it. It's so loud and so sudden. And if you hunt with them, you know, get away if you're right by him, you go, well, but then you get 200 yards away. It sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So are you using yours as a locator, or are you soft calling with it as well?
You know, I will use it as a locator, but I use it for aggressive calling. So it's the perfect combination with a trumpet. I feel like a trumpet is a really good soft caller. Not saying that you can't use it loud or even to locate, but to me, the perfect pair is a tube call and a trumpet, because what the tube can't do, the trumpet can do, and what the trumpet can't do, the tube can do. So a lot of it is more loud, aggressive calling, whether it be cutting or excited yelping, that kind of thing. Plus, if I need to, I can gobble on it. So that's my go-to gobble call.
Richie, let's play a sound file.
Wow.
That was beautiful. It's got more rasp than.
I mean,
it's high pitched.
That hen sounded mad. And it had that high on it, but there was low mixed in.
So is it true when you were making these sound recordings for us outside your house, you were doing this in a turkey gobble?
Yeah, so we had a little audio trouble. You know, I couldn't do it over the computer. So he told me just, you know, record some stuff, and it doesn't sound good inside. So I went in the backyard and I walked to the edge of the woods, and I should have hit the owl hooter first, but I hit the tube call first. And I thought I heard a turkey gobble, but I was like, nah, I'm not sure that was a turkey. And so kind of like he was saying with Cuz, it was a long way off. So I just kept running it a little bit. And then I grabbed my owl hooter and I hooted, and sure enough, it was a turkey, and he was on the way. So I didn't want him to catch me. So I had to run back to the house real quick.
That's awesome.
Well,
it's one of those things. What's that? It's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
it is.
Life goals. I want to be able to hear turkeys off my back porch someday.
Ooh, yes.
Wow. So does that mean? So we're
here we go, Bobby. Watch him. He's gonna be sliding in your pocket.
Your tube call sounds incredible, and
thank you.
Yeah, it really does. So, boy, what a versatile caller you are. Dudley hit the nail on the head when you said you're a multi
instrumentalist.
Yeah, that's incredible. All right, so Toxie's showing me some kind of are those hooter? What is that? A hooter?
That's a trumpet.
That is the trumpet.
That is the trumpet. There was a collaborative effort between us and our guest here, and actually, I think it was a brainchild of my son Neil, and it brought $25,000 for charity at an auction.
That is incredible.
Daniel just texted me. I asked him to make sure. He said, as far as you know, that's the highest price ever paid for a turkey call. And he may have heard of a different one, but as far as we know, or the NWTF said, they don't think they've ever seen one that much for it. So, but hats off to him and the whole thing, and went to such a great cause. Actually, a fair chunk of what we raised is going back. Actually, starting this year, back to the National Wild Turkey Federation too. With St. Jude, Catch a Dream are our main two, but we've started funding, conservation organizations through Gamekeeper grants. But anyway, it was a pretty special moment at that charity event we put on, I'll tell you.
Well, Doxie, I just got to say that I appreciate the opportunity to do that. It was an honor to be able to work with that wood, and I know how meaningful it is, and it means something to me as well.
That's
being
awesome.
a friend of the brand all these years, and it was pretty. I was honestly a little nervous when I was working that wood because I was scared something's going to happen to it.
Yeah.
And you spinning something at 15,000 RPMs and anything can happen, but it worked out, and it all went to such a great cause, and I appreciate all y'all do on that.
Well, so I don't think
effort.
it was some wood from the original mossy oak tree.
Mossy oak tree, yep.
Yeah.
A sand post oak.
Quercus margareta.
Yep. Which aren't.
Mr. Martin, that's incredible. Have you heard of a call going for more than that, or is that indeed the record?
Well, I think from what I understand, for a contemporary call, that's the record. I think there may have been some old antique calls that went for more than that.
Right.
I think I'm not sure about the Jordan call that turned up a few years ago, but there was a Henry Davis call way back that went for like 55,000, something like that.
Wow.
So, but those are old antique
heirlooms.
calls. A contemporary call like that, that's the highest I know of.
Yeah.
We've had a couple on here, but it is cool to call out all those people collecting calls from the custom call makers like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's created a very cool cottage industry within turkey hunting, kind of the peak of the tip of the spear stuff, just incredible with workmanship and great calls. But I just think it's so cool because it shows the deep love people have for the sport, when they get into collecting stuff like that and paying that kind of money for that kind of craftsmanship. It's only been, I guess it's gotten really crazy with the last 10, 12 years maybe. There's been some, but it's really taken off.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just looking on eBay. I'm not really that hardcore into it, but 15 years ago, I'd be looking on eBay and you would see all these old calls, and now you barely see them anymore.
Not anymore.
When I won the Champion of Champions, one of the calls that you had to use was a trumpet.
Right.
And so that's really what kind of sparked my interest in trumpets. I didn't hunt with trumpets way back. Of course, I made my first wing bone in 1989, somewhere along in there.
Wow.
And really just made it and fooled with it a little bit. I didn't really hunt with it much. But when I started calling Champion of Champions, I was using a goose bone, and I was thinking, that there might be a better sounding call. So I actually made one myself and worked on that. And that's kind of how the trumpet thing came about. There again, kind of an accident. I didn't really plan on making trumpets. I started making, something that I could use that fit what I wanted to do with it. And then, somebody says, "Hey, make me one." And then the next thing I'm in the trumpet business, but I don't make that many. I don't make but maybe 35 or a little more calls a year. And, a lot of people kind of get mad when they don't get one. And I'm sorry about that. It's just, I just can't do it. It's, how it is when you're a wildlife manager, everything's dependent on time and weather. So I got to go, and I don't have a lot of time to be in the shop.
I wouldn't change a thing.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, have you got any insight for somebody that's trying, like Dudley, who's trying to learn how to blow a trumpet?
Well, the first thing you need to do is get a good trumpet. You need to get a trumpet that fits you. You know, there's a lot of really good trumpet makers out there, and find a good trumpet, because if you got a trumpet that is harder to use, it's going to be harder for you to learn on it. So you want one it's got turkey in it to start with, and you'll just have to take that from somebody else who has one that you like the sound of and they like the way it plays. So start with a good trumpet and start learning to play soft. The softer you can play it, the more you're going to learn how to control that air. And a lot of people can play a trumpet really loud, but the style that I use is more, we kind of refer to it as the farmer style, because a man named Zach Farmer, who's a minister from South Carolina, he kind of made that style popular, and kind of an innovator in his own right. Some really good friend to me. He passed away about a year ago, January.
Wow.
But he and I did a NWTF film called The Reverend. So you can go on YouTube and type in NWTF The Reverend and watch that video, and it's pretty awesome to watch Mr. Zach. And he kind of kept things to himself. He didn't really teach you how to do things, but I learned what could be done with a trumpet, how you could play a trumpet in a way that most people haven't heard. I mean, he sounds like a turkey. And so I learned that method. So you kind of want to decide, if you want to try to learn that method, there is a way that you have to draw the air. It's not kissing on it or sucking on it like that. It's you're drawing air, and it's a soft, easy draw. So you need a call that is capable of, playing that way, because people make the call to play the way that the maker plays the call. So that's the other thing, learn to call soft. And if you want to use that method, then learn that method and stick with it. Don't go back and forth, because it's really hard. It gets complicated when you start pulling air different ways and sucking on it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm still new to it. I made a couple of wing bones a long time ago, and then just kind of put it to the side. But I've recently been really interested in it, and I can't seem to quit practicing. But
it's addictive.
Yeah, I've noticed, to me, what seems to be the most difficult is having a sustained yelp.
Sure.
I can get 3 notes pretty easy, but trying to get a good 7 or 8 note or more yelp is the most difficult in my mind.
And that's coming from that air draw, trying to get that consistent draw. And believe it or not, you will be able to, if you practice enough, you'll be able to, and I know it's hard to believe, but you'll be able to draw air, pull air in from your mouth and breathe out of your nose at the exact same time. So you got air coming in and air going out, and you can just continue to yelp as long as you want to, once you learn that breath control, once you learn how to run it. But practice soft as you can, and you can always get louder, but soft. And soft kills turkeys, I'm telling you.
Oh, no doubt.
The one thing I can tell you about a trumpet, and I'm an old diaphragm guy. I mean, I competed for years, and I never thought that I would not even, I don't even carry a diaphragm in my vest anymore. So it made a believer out of me, because it seemed like turkeys were just absolutely convinced that it was another turkey. And I'm not saying that about my calling. I'm saying that about the way the call sounds in the woods. And it's amazing. And I know this sounds crazy. A turkey can pinpoint you. I don't care where you are. He's going to pinpoint you. He knows exactly where you are. But I do feel like that I can fool him on distance. I think sometimes that he feels like I might be a little farther than I really am. And I think turkeys hang up less on me. I think that a lot of times they come in and they're on you before they realize it, and they maybe misjudge. And I'm not taking anything away from a turkey because they know where you are, but it just seems like maybe they misjudge the distance a little bit. And it's a directional call too. So
That's That's interesting insight.
It is. And I'll mention a video I've watched of you and our friend Dave and Mr. KT sitting down together. There was a lot of good information in that video. Teaching.
That's kind of when the trumpet thing blew up. Dave has a lot of followers, and when we did that video, I mean, it was unbelievable, the response that we got, especially Dave, because Dave hunts with one of my trumpets as well, and he became a believer too. Now he's hunting with the tube call too. So, he's got a lot of tools in his toolbox anyway, but he's a straight up killer.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Hey y'all, Jimbo here with Drake Waterfowl and Old Tom Turkey, talking about some of our new turkey stuff for this spring. We want to start with the Early Bird collection with Vital Protection Technology, our newest, most innovative collection of technical hunting apparel designed for turkey hunters. It helps in the prevention of tick-borne illnesses such as Lyme disease and alpha-gal syndrome. It's good for up to 70 washings. It's lightweight, breathable stretch fabric with antimicrobial technologies. Be sure and check it out at a dealer near you or drakewaterfowl.com/Old Tom.
Lanny, we're always in here. We always have these interesting guests, and you're always on your computer. What's up?
I'm looking at Onyx the whole time. I love the app, but I love the desktop too.
My favorite thing is Bobby doesn't know how to shut his computer down, so I can go in there and share his pins to my account.
That's what you were doing in there this morning.
Yep. Back during deer season, I shot a couple of big bucks.
Of course.
As I'm looking for them, I can turn on this tracking feature.
Yeah.
And I can see where I've looked.
And I use that feature too for spreading seed, spreading fertilizer, spraying. It really keeps you on track.
Onyx is a great company. Look, we know Jared. They're hunters,
they
just
are.
like we are.
Yes,
So they're
no
serious
doubt
about this. The way they've designed this thing, a hunter and a gamekeeper can take advantage of it and make their property better.
Use coupon code Mossy Oak to save 20% off of your Onyx subscription.
Yeah, and Mac, you shouldn't do that now. Richie, you got to help me. Okay. So, Mark, you mentioned you only make about 30 or 35 of these a year, but can you recommend 3 or 4 trumpet makers so people listening to this might have an opportunity to go find one this year? Is there 3, 4, 5 that you'd recommend?
Oh man, if I start naming names, I'm gonna get in trouble.
I was going to say that. You probably can understand that.
I don't want to get you.
There are some really good guys. There's guys in South Carolina, guys in Georgia, and they make really good calls. Mr. Billy Bice, he makes some outstanding calls.
Yep.
But Mr. Billy, he's not making very many anymore.
So hey, well, hang on right there. So a guy sent me a video of Mr. Billy on a lathe, I guess, turning something. I didn't realize I think they said he was about 90 years old. Is that right?
I'm not real sure. I don't know if he's that old, but he's definitely getting up in age, and I don't think he makes as many as he used to, and I don't think he's taking any orders or anything. But I got a lot of respect for Mr. Billy and what he's done over the years with calls. The same as with Mr. Zach Farmer. He only made a few calls, and his calls were highly sought after. But there's really good trumpet call makers out there, and I don't want I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, no, I get that.
We don't either.
And I'm glad you mentioned that Billy Bice. He's somebody that actually I've been thinking about. We ought to have him, but you say it's pronounced Bice, but it's spelled differently, isn't it?
Yeah, Buice, I think.
Okay, that kind of threw me when it first.
But like at the turkey tailgate last weekend, there were several folks that had trumpets there, and
Sure did.
they've got alcohol pads, so you don't, you definitely want to try it out, because they, my mouth parts, may work differently on the front end of a trumpet than somebody else, and so you can just try them out and pick one out.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
So Richie, wake up over there. Richie, please wake up. Can we play a couple of these trumpet sounds for us? My goodness.
Unbelievable.
That
I was
really
listening for a turkey gobbling way off in the background.
It's so hen. Wow.
How long do you think?
Honestly, I've heard quite a few people. I've never heard anybody that good.
No,
nobody.
No.
And I've been around some people who can really.
How long do you think it took you to learn to play it like that?
It took a long time. I listened to Mr. Zach and I didn't, I had a lot of respect for Mr. Zach. I never asked him how to make calls. I didn't ask him how he ran his call. I just kind of listened to him and figured it out. And it took a long time. And I think I'm still learning. I think I'm still trying to get to a point to where, I'm satisfied with it. But it takes a lot of breath control, a lot of I don't know. And Toxie can tell you, once you get a turkey in your head, sometimes you can find it. No matter what kind of call you're running, you can find that turkey.
But I mean, but you also you have, like the really great ones. You have a musical gift. I mean, you just do. I mean, people that don't even call in contest stuff that are really good, they have a musical ear. But then you're willing to work at it too. You got that in your head, like you talk about an obsession, literally, but then you're willing to put the work in year over year over year, and you don't just pick it up for hunting season and forget about it. That's a big difference right there.
Yeah. I think I practice more now than I did when I was competing. Really, I just kind of am obsessed with it.
Yeah, my wife and kids are sick of it.
Well,
go outside.
I know that feeling.
It's beautiful.
I mean, even if you're pretty new to it, I feel like you can make a noise that a turkey will gobble at.
Oh yeah.
And slowly build some confidence and just try to use it more and more in the woods, and maybe it'll become your mainstay in the future.
A lot of people are killing turkeys with trumpets that they don't feel like they sound that good up close, but at a distance. And same with a box call. You take a box call up close, you hear springs and lid squeaking and all that kind of stuff. But at a distance, a lot of times it sounds exactly like a turkey. And it's got that a trumpet has some kind of a hit in there. It's got that roll, that rollover that thumps, and it sounds like a turkey. And whatever that is, they respond to it.
There's a thump in the back end of a hen doing that. You're exactly right. It's
yeah.
almost it's almost like it's a little bit kin to the thump on a strutter. It's but it's on the backside when it gets really, they say raspy. I kind of don't like the word raspy because it's more than just nasally. But still, it's incredible. And what you just did, I could not believe how you did that on a trumpet call.
So can you make just that same trumpet you were using to make that sound file? Can you make Jake noises and stuff on it as well, or do you usually pick up another trumpet hanging around your neck?
No, one thing that I wanted to do when I set out to make calls, I wanted to make a call that would do everything. Not everything. You're not going to find one that does everything, but it will. Jake yelp pretty good. Gobbler yelp. And I've spent a lot of time. I spend every day in the woods, and I spend a lot of time with turkeys, and I spent a lot of time with gobblers in the fall, listening to them and that kind of stuff. And it'll do it. It's in there. You just got to be able to get it out. You just got to change. Again, you got to change the way you're drawing air. You got to change your throat. Sometimes your mouth and your lips to make a deeper sound and still get that rollover. But it can be done. And a trumpet, as far as the soft stuff, that's where it's really good. But with Jake yelps and things like that, you can get a little bit louder with it, and it sounds real, I think.
So, just to be clear, what I heard you say is you don't really like kiss the call like a lot of people are trying to do on a traditional wing bone. You're drawing air, I guess, all the way from your diaphragm, just like
yeah.
Opposite of how you blow a mouth call, almost.
It's how you huff on a diaphragm. Right. It's reverse huffing. Right.
But I was just sitting here, kind of, because I didn't know that, honestly. It's great to learn, and so I was just sitting there thinking, how would that work? And next thing I know, I could feel my diaphragm pulling that air in. So I had to ask that question. That gives me something to practice now. Dudley too.
A lot of it is in your throat too. You got to learn to use the throat and those muscles in there to pull that air. And it's really hard to describe. I mean, it's hard to tell somebody how to run a diaphragm call. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things you just got to put it in there and just keep it in there and run it. And a trumpet is the same to me. You just gotta run it all the time and just keep trying to make different sounds, pulling air from different places and changing things. And it just kind of over time you figure out where to get that sound.
So now that you've mastered the trumpet, or as close to mastering it as you can be, if you picked up a wing bone, can you run that equally as well?
Yeah, it's the same principle. The only difference is I control on a trumpet. I control the diameter of the mouthpiece, the middle part, and the bell part. Whereas a wing bone, it kind of is what it is. I mean, you can get really technical with a wing bone and feel and drill, but to take a wing bone and glue it all up together, it's going to sound a lot like whatever it's going to be. A gobbler's usually going to be a little deeper, and a hen or a Jake bone is probably going to be a little higher pitch. So it just depends, and I have run snow goose bones. So you take a snow goose bone, they kiki really well, do a little bit higher pitch stuff. It's just the diameters and all that kind of make it a little easier to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would think a trumpet mouthpiece that I see them using is much more precise than the end of a piece of cane or the end of a bone. Yeah, but I could be wrong.
Richie, could we play those trumpet sounds one more time, please? That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. My hat's off to you. That gives me chills to listen to that. I wish I could do it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Wow. Guys.
Yeah, because we listened to across the board too today.
Yeah.
Multiple calls.
Yes. His owl hoot. I almost said I love his hooters, but his owl hooting is incredible. Yeah. It is incredible.
All of it. Every bit of it.
What an interesting guy, and how diverse is this guy?
Everything, but he how many times he told us he's in the woods every day. That's his that's what he does for a living is, manage the woods. He's out there and he sits with turkeys all year long when he can. So think about it. He is so tuned in and trying to be like, it's more than like, I sound so really good, I can kill turkeys better. I mean, it's like he's obsessed. Like he said, he practices more now than when he was going into the contest. He just loves sounding just like the critters. I think that's just, and I think a lot of the really good ones are like that. It's not just, I sound so great, I'll call a turkey away from Bobby if I hunt with him. It's not really that, is it?
No, I just really like to blend in. I like to be
exactly.
I like to go in the woods and be a part of the woods, not just I want to go in there and be just blend in. I mean, that's just basically it.
That's exactly what I've always been obsessed with.
That's very true.
Exactly.
Very true.
Different way, maybe visually, not audio wise. Although I can relate to it.
So, Mark, to learn a little bit more about you, are you a grandfather? You got kids? You got what's going on in your personal life?
Well, I'm married. I've got a son. In fact, I was going to come down there to y'all and go live in the studio, but my son's getting married Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like if I had come down there, I'd probably got in trouble. So
Probably so.
Bobby just married off his love of his life last September, I believe it was.
Yeah, those
all right.
And they got a grandchild coming in July.
Yeah, that's right, June.
Oh, Bobby.
All right.
World's moving real fast.
It is.
Congratulations.
It is changing under his feet in 1 year's time.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I think we need to try to get you back and talk about some waterfowl management or something. You wear a lot of hats, so we may have to
just a pure gamekeeper.
We may have to look into that in the future.
Indeed.
Yeah, man, that's my passion. I love making critters happy and waterfowl. I've been doing waterfowl for 42 years.
Wow.
So
yeah, I want to pick that brain bad.
He's over there in the part of the world where they're seeing some of the mallard genetic issues
all
happening.
of it, all of them. Yeah, they're in the worst part of it.
Oh yeah. Right. I'm right in the middle of all that, and and I've kind of helped do a little bit of that. I've done a little bit of research and stuff, and worked with some of those guys that were working on that, and it's interesting stuff. And I guess we'll find out more, in the genetic side of things.
Really random, but do y'all still see a lot of black ducks over there?
It's kind of weird. Every now and then we get black ducks. I'm not right on the immediate coast, but some of the guys 20 miles east of me, they get a lot of black ducks.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 20 miles from the ocean, so those guys on that brackish water stuff get a lot of blacks.
Okay.
30 years ago, we saw them all the time right here. I'll never see them anymore. I mean, every now and then someone like Neil can see really, really good and go, there's a black duck in that group right there. But I can't remember the last time someone shot one that I can remember out of our hunts. They aren't here.
They're a cool duck.
Oh, they're so cool.
Yeah.
And they, I've seen 2 or 3 no more than that have had like slightly green heads, a hybrid.
Yeah, I killed one in Arkansas a few years ago like that was a hybrid, had a green head, and it's a black duck. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, learning about Mark and his love of wildlife and taking care of wild places and what he does over there on a daily basis, it kind of, so, I always read a quote, or I don't always, but I like to try to read a quote. Mark, this is kind of in honor of you. I found this quote that made me think about you, but it says, the wildlife of today is not ours to do with what we please. The original stock was given to us in trust for the benefit of both the present and the future. We must render an accounting of this trust to those who come after us. You care to
That's absolutely true.
Care to guess who said that? One of my favorite guys.
I thought
one of your favorite guys. Would that be Barry Manilow?
Yeah.
Who would that be?
Yeah, that would have been Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt.
I've become a big fan.
All right.
So, yeah.
Oh, no doubt, man. I love that old history stuff.
Oh,
and
man. Yes.
One thing that I grew up and killed my first turkey just a couple miles from Archibald Rutledge's house.
Wow.
So I read a lot of his stuff, and Henry Davis hunted in the same exact place where I killed my first turkey. And those guys, I've read all that stuff, and I'm just really into that old history stuff. And man, I love reading that stuff for sure. Thomas Samworth, he owned a plantation that was just across the river from where I was. He published the book, the American Wild Turkey, and he did all kind of. He actually was with the NRA, and he named the American Rifleman magazine. So he was right there. Archibald Rutledge was, 20 miles from me. Henry Davis was 20 miles the other way. So I'm right in that triangle of all these guys, during that time. And they wrote a lot of important stuff, and a lot of that stuff's still good today.
Yeah, it is. So, if they ever invent a trombone call, I'm going to expect you to be the first to master it and to come on here and play that with us, a 2-piece trombone call. So.
Don't give him any ideas.
Mark Prudhomme. You got. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It looks like it's a lot of ways you could pronounce your last name. But we've enjoyed talking to you. I am just fascinated by what an interesting person you are. We didn't even get into how he manages the Grand National Calling Contest.
Well, we'll get into that next time.
We'll save that for another time. But look, has anybody got any? Talk. You got another question or anything?
Else? If we start on another line of questioning, we'd be here for another hours.
We would.
Could be an all dayer.
Yep.
So no, not for now. When's the season open this weekend? 20th.
Youth Day is last Saturday in March, and then we moved our season up. So I'm glad, but it's April 3rd.
Wow.
Is when our opener is.
Alabama moved it up 10 days. Mississippi has not.
So you got a wedding in the first part of turkey season. That timing of that seems a little like somebody didn't consult with you, maybe.
It's before turkey season. It's this Saturday, so I'm okay. But it's just one more morning. I'm not going to be able to go listen, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I tell you,
it's all good.
Nobody told me that the wedding was going to be fun. I ended up having a good time at the wedding that I recently had to participate in. But I dreaded it for so long, I didn't realize it was going to be fun.
Well, I think it's all the worry and that it's not going to go right or it's going to rain or something like that. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you there.
Thank you.
But we've really enjoyed, guys. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We've really enjoyed doing them. Richie, wake up, Richie. We've got the television shows on the Sportsman's Channel now, Sunday nights. Mark, when you're over there in South Carolina, laying leisurely around the house there, you ever watch our television show?
Sure, I've seen it.
There you go, Richie.
Yeah, someone's watching.
That's two people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard about another guy. I think there's some other guy.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Well,
I think he's a candidate for a full episode Gamekeeper.
He would be a good
all the way around.
He
I think
would be good.
Yeah, we could work something out. I'm sure.
Yeah, I need to go over there, and we could do that in April.
Here, I can go over there in April. Mate, I don't know about you, Bob. You're
Don't
tied up on a few things.
Don't even think about letting them over there.
I know Bobby's notorious for trying to show up.
Yeah, I'm so glad we've been able to publicize that now through the podcast. Everybody knows to watch out for him. I'm just kind of glad for the safety of turkeys.
It's not working out that well for me, Mark. So. Well, guys, we've enjoyed it. Mark, do you have any social media? Can a guy follow you, or how do they learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and you can catch me on there. I don't post a whole lot of stuff, but I do a little bit here and there.
All right. Well, we'll
even better.
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of like the call, make them more special when you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I'm looking. I think Richie needs to run to the emergency room. He's got a daughter that's been in.
I think she had a softball accident and has ACL issues.
Yeah. We just found out she's blew her ACL there, so we're gonna go.
Oh no.
We got surgery coming up in a few weeks.
Prayers up. Prayers up.
Oof. Well, thank you for all you did on this one, Richie.
Yes.
You worked hard
You're
on
a
this
trooper,
one.
always.
Yep. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley. Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.